Hello, everyone, and welcome into the video portion of our broadcast that we do here. And this is
One
just
minute until showtime.
a little preamble that we do here, just to make sure that everything connects up correctly, and of course gives us a little opportunity to let you know who's going to be on the show before the show actually starts. And that, by the way, is Intel. They will be joining us today. And today we have a gentleman named Anand Srivatsa who will be joining us. He is the general manager of the desktop platform group. So we will be talking all about their latest processors, the Gen 7, and just why, just maybe, you should think about upgrading or even getting a whole new computer to possibly take advantage of what they have come out with this year. Very exciting stuff. So, with that being said, we're going to get started in just a couple of seconds. Also, be sure to check out computeramerica.com for all the show notes, as well as how to enter our social media contest of the week. That, by the way, being
Your
sponsored
show
by,
will go live
by
in 5
Logitech.
seconds.
Here we
4,
go.
3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live, it's America's longest-running national radio talk show on computers, Computer America, hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. Look for Craig's weekly column in your favorite newspaper. This show is being beamed nationwide at computeramerica.com. Keep it here for technology news, computer products, guest interviews, and your phone calls. You're listening to Computer America. Computers run the world, and we run computers. Call us or send us an email to live@computeramerica.com.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and thank you so much for joining us once again. It is already the end of the month. Who saw that one coming? It just flew on by. Of course, we're going to thank a lot of that for all of our listeners that have been listening all month long. At least over here, it seemed like it flew by thanks to, of course, CES, which dominated the early part of the month. And we have had company after company on that has come on the show to talk about everything they displayed out there at the Consumer Electronics Show. It was a lot of fun. Glad that we made it, and super glad that all the companies that visited us this month were able to do so. Now, kind of keeping in the same vein, of course, they did have a large presence out at CES. And they have a large presence in technology that you use every single day. They are the premier processor manufacturing company, and we are so honored to have them back on. This of course, being Intel, and we have the general manager of the desktop platform group on the show with us today to talk all about their 7th generation processors and what that means for you, what exactly makes them better than the 6th generation, and what you can do with these things. It's going to be a lot of fun, so stay tuned as we get into that. But before we get to our guests, I of course have to mention a few things, including computeramerica.com. That will have everything that you need for today's show, including show notes and archives, so if you miss anything, you can go back and find it, as well as any links to any articles that we do, or links to today's guest. Should be pretty easy to find right there over at our website. And while you're there, be sure to check out the video portion as well as the social media contest, which, by the way, continue to be sponsored by Logitech. And that's we are giving away a Keys to Go keyboard by Logitech, giving that away to a lucky Facebook follower. And of course, you can find all the rules to enter over at our website. We do that every single Friday, and yeah, looking forward to doing it once again. Now, with all of that out of the way, I think we're just going to jump right into this because we have them for the half hour, and I'm really excited because, when building a new computer, it starts at the ground up, and really, there's flashy things like, of course, the case and LEDs and all that good stuff, but between the GPU, of course, and the CPU, which is what we're going to be talking about today, you really want to get the best that you can when it comes to those two very, very crucial parts, including, all the other stuff that goes around it. But the CPU is a good place to start. So, to help us, maybe, explain some of the mystery behind CPUs, and of course, talk to us about their latest Gen 7 processors. Joining us on the show today, we have and let me make sure I get the right person. Here we go. Mr. Anand Srivatsa, and he is the general manager of the desktop platform group for Intel. And Anand, thank you so much for coming on to Computer America today.
Hey, Ben. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, no, we are too. It's been a little while, but Intel has not been sitting around doing nothing. Of course, you guys just announced, like I've been saying the entire show, the seventh generation processors, and this is always exciting when you guys come out with a new series of processors because you know not to mince words, but they are incremental. But even so, every incremental upgrade is still, of course, just by their very nature, so much better than the previous generation. So I think we're going to get this started today with this question, saying that, of course, at CES or even a little bit before CES, Intel announced the new generation of processors. How exactly is this different than the ones that you announced about middle of last year?
Sure. So first of all, thank you again. And as you mentioned, Intel is focused on delivering a consistent cadence of industry-leading products, right? So we do it. We are now on the seventh generation of our core microarchitecture, and each generation of product brings with it certain enhancements, really driven by what our customers are expecting across segments, both from a consumer user base as well as commercial and enterprise. For the seventh generation product, we actually launched the product in two sets of phases. In August of last year, we actually announced our seventh generation Intel Core processor family for premium thin and light laptops. So these included devices like really slick two-in-ones like the HP Spectre, the Dell XPS 13. From those set of products that launched in August, we have 90 designs that are already in market now for those targeted use cases. What we did in January and in CES specifically was broaden out the rest of the product portfolio under the 7th Gen family. And we introduced products that would go into enthusiast laptops. So we've seen incredible amounts of growth in these gaming laptops that are coming out that really deliver gaming performance on the go, as well as high performance desktops, our mini desktops and all-in-ones, and had some new sets of designs for business PCs across the 2-in-1 family all the way to desktop. So that full range of products was announced in January, and we're pretty excited to see that we're going to have over 400 designs across these new set of products that are going to be in market soon. Some of them are already available for purchase now, and then you'll continue to see our customers deliver these products into markets over the course of the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, I will say that, of course, following the announcements at CES, and not just not just from Intel, but from a lot of the companies out there, this idea that a laptop needs to be sleek and portable. I mean, yeah, there are still people who are really trying to innovate in that area, but there are also others who have decided that sleek and portable for a laptop doesn't always have to be the right solution. And we're starting to see, and which I think you hinted at a bit there, this idea of a desktop replacement computer where you put a full-fledged processor, full-fledged graphics cards, and of course, there's a company out there that had like a $9,000 laptop, but this idea that you want all that power and all that and all that capability. You mentioned business as well. There were a lot of different computers out there with great business capabilities. Is this something that Intel has kind of been planning for, or is this kind of taking you aside? Because Intel has always had the mobile processors and the desktop processors. One, of course, focused on efficiency and really did a lot of good stuff there, whereas the desktop was all about power and just all that good stuff. But now we're starting to see that people want all the power, and even if you sacrifice battery life, they still want it in a business/gaming laptop. Is this something that Intel caught on to?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. And I think fundamentally what we are seeing in the industry, and obviously Intel being a leading technology provider and working very closely with our customers, we absolutely see the trend of increased segmentation from a product perspective to the end customer. I think what you're fundamentally starting to see, and you could take this back to the old sort of Ford Model T, right? There was a time when the only car you could get was black. There was a time when the only computer you could get was a desktop. It didn't matter what your specific usage was.
Right.
And now what you're starting to see is we're starting to see products that are really tailored for what people want from them and what people intend to do from them. And so in some cases, if you have a person who's a road warrior who's really looking for something that's very sleek, right? Something that they're going to carry around, maybe something for work or even something for personal entertainment. You have a set of buyers who are buying very thin devices where they want the ability to go and entertain themselves and potentially be productive as well. And we're seeing a lot of those people buy our two-in-one set of products. And this is actually the second fastest growing compute category across the range of devices, right, including phones and tablets. Two-in-ones are growing incredibly fast because there's a range of customers who want this type of product. But as you run through that, there's also another set of people who are looking to take their gaming experiences and not compromise on that visual experience, either the real estate of the screen or the performance of the graphics. And some of them intend to take those gaming experiences mobile. And those things are manifesting themselves in these high-performance laptops where there is a trade-off for battery life. But again, the users are choosing what's important to them.
Right.
If you come back over to the desktop side, we're absolutely seeing stunning growth in the high end of our product line. What we would say right now is a desktop buyer is not confused. Right? There was a time about 7 years ago when the cheapest computer you could procure was a desktop, and buying a notebook for some people who probably desired one was beyond their affordability range. That is no longer the case. The people who are buying desktops today are absolutely buying for specific reasons. A lot of them either to go and make sure that they have the right device for the usage that they intend to go drive. So one is, gaming, high performance gaming is still the best on a desktop with, the kind of performance you can get out of the graphics and the CPU. You also get things like multi-monitor gaming, right? I know Razer announced a three-screen laptop at CES, but the typical setup for a multi-monitor gaming rig is a desktop. But the one thing I did want to point out is even in the desktop space, we're seeing a range of new design points. In the commercial side, for example, you have a bunch of people who are trying to maximize their use of office space. And so they're, in some cases, replacing a larger tower with a mini PC, something that's, sub 1 liter to go and get that desk space back and be able to use it for productivity. So fundamentally, we're seeing this hyper segmentation of devices where the device is really tailored to the end user purpose or usage. And so we're absolutely seeing this as a real trend, and we expect that it will continue.
Very, very well said. And of course, that will bring us into our next point because, if you see it, of course, it's one thing for us to talk about it, but it's another for Intel to actually design these chips to accomplish everything that these people want to do. And it's, not the easiest thing in the world. Just to get a little bit into the technical details, I mean, we for the last couple generations, we've been hearing about this fabled jump to the 10 nanometer processor. Die if I'm using all my terminology correctly. This one's still on the 14 nanometer. So why don't you talk about some of the specifics of kind of what sets the 7th generation apart from the other chips and what exactly it can do that's so different.
Yeah, I think I want to start again with sort of the market changes that we're seeing overall, that inform our decision making, right? So when you look at what the internet is today, it's absolutely immersive and really tuned back to video. And so the trends that we see, and this is not internet only in some cases, one trend that we see obviously in the television world as well is the growth of 4K, right? We're seeing content that moved from 480p to 720p to HD and now is moving very rapidly to 4K. We're seeing that absolutely explode, right? You've got services like Netflix, for example, that's offering streaming 4K video, and we absolutely want the PC to be a participant in that kind of usage scenario. And so with the 7th gen product line, we have enhancements in our graphics pipeline to allow you to go and stream premium content from places like Netflix and play directly onto our product line. In addition, we've got new areas that are also growing in terms of gaming, like esports, right? So esports is something that's absolutely become a cultural phenomenon, something that I think has exploded over the last 3 or 4 years, but really signals the rebirth of PC gaming. And so from our product line, when you look at our 7th gen product family, we bring a tremendous amount of high performance into the space, right? Leading with our 7700K desktop processor. That product line on the day of launch actually had 7 world records that are broke on the overclocking side.
Wow.
So between esports and new immersive technologies like VR and new types of video formats like 360-degree video, we've got a range of capabilities that the 7th gen product line is enabling, specifically from a performance perspective with increased CPU performance,
Mm-hmm.
and then from a graphics and media capability in order to go and handle that 4K video, either for the consumption of premium content or the ability to go back and build, your own 360 video, stuff like, what you do, Ben, which is, working on a blog or republishing content, user-defined media or user-created media. It's a market that we absolutely see growing, and we think the 7th gen product line gives you the best tools in order to go do that.
Yeah, everything that you just said. Of course, the one that stuck out to me personally was, of course, esports. I know that Intel puts on like IEM Oakland, Intel Extreme Masters for League of Legends, and they do a number of things for like Counter Strike and many other video games out there. It's definitely something that a lot. I will say in my personal life, a lot of my friends they will, of course, look at a new computer as soon as the new awesome, whatever the new awesome game is, as soon as they can't play it anymore, that's when it's time to upgrade. And of course, with the hardware getting so much better, software can of course follow suit, and that pushes the computers even further. Which, of course, Intel processors, you definitely want, at least you definitely at least want like an i3, i5, what have you. But at the same time, we also just had, and this is deviating a little bit, but about 2 weeks ago we had HDMI on the show, the organization that sets the standards, and it's so funny to hear you guys say that you need to keep up with all the speed that people demand out of their devices, and then I talked to HDMI. They are scrambling with all of their providers to set the standards high enough to, like you said, 4K, 360-degree video, virtual reality. I mean, it seems like there's a real rush behind the like not consumer facing, but behind the scenes to get a lot of this technology. I mean, ubiquitous in the next couple of years. Does that seem to be on your side as well, where people are now asking a lot of their hardware all of a sudden? I mean, like 3, 4, 5 years ago, they tried 3D TV. They didn't want it. Now everyone wants 4K. Everyone wants VR. Everyone wants these high, processor intensive use cases. Do you feel like any kind of stress from the market to say, hey, we need to pick this up a bit?
Yeah, actually, I think we are super excited, right? I do think, to your point, the ways that media is changing is absolutely rapid, and I think there's a huge range of new types of media experiences that I think people can deliver. One, I think if you look back a couple of years, it was fairly linear from a media consumption perspective. We did try 3D for a while, but as you pointed out, it sort of had a lot of hype behind it, but didn't really deliver.
Yeah.
What had been delivering was obviously this move from 480 to 720 to 1080 to 4K, and that train continues to move forward, right? We do expect over time to see media. It's already getting shot in things like 8K,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually that stuff will start coming to a consumer, to a consumer experience. But again, beyond that, you have new media capabilities with things like VR, right? And there's two aspects of VR. One, which is a user-generated world, and then the other one, which is 360-degree video. And the really exciting thing I think we see is one, the ability to make this kind of content, which several years ago would be limited to large corporations because of the cost of buying the material in order to generate this content. Now, you can get a GoPro with a 360-degree peripheral, right? You can put a couple of GoPros together, and you've got a reasonably performant computer, and for probably $3,000 to $5,000, you can go in and create a setup that's shooting incredible 360-degree video. And there are platforms, obviously, to go and deliver those with YouTube and other places. And so we're seeing an absolute explosion in this, and I think viewers are going to get a ton of choices on the kind of content they want to go consume. The exciting thing I think for us from an Intel perspective is we think there's a play from a PC perspective, not only in the enjoyment of this content, right, playing VR games,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also going to be a significant play in the creation of this content. I think the new internet has really democratized content creation. It's not just going to be the Sonys of the world that create content, but some of the most exciting content will likely come from people that are amateurs in the space, but really doing incredible things. And so I think the ability to make that accessible to the audience, I think, is very, very valuable, and we think that our technology really helps deliver that.
I think so as well. And, everything that you just mentioned there, including the idea that you can create content that would take studios, used to take studios tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment. Nowadays, like you said, 3 to 5 thousand, and you are off to the races shooting 360-degree video. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. But of course, talking about fun and computers, I could do this all day. But there's a business side to this. There are business applications to having a faster computer, a better performing computer. So, what has the 7th generation processor done in the enterprise field?
Yeah, on the enterprise side, again, this is a very important segment for Intel, right? Over 90+% of the devices that people use for their workplace are actually powered with Intel technology. The highlight of our product line is actually our vPro set of products, which actually offers 3 sets of promises. One is we want to deliver the devices that have the highest level of productivity. And over the course of the last 10 years, this has become increasingly important as the cost of technology relative to the pay for people, has come down, right? So it's increasingly important to make sure that your workforce is highly productive because of the cost of that technology is fairly limited to unlock the productivity of your employee base. So again, the 7th gen product line offers great gains from a productivity perspective. Specifically against a 5-year-old PC, which is typically what's in the install base, you're seeing performance gains on notebooks, for example, of about 65%. So pretty significant improvements from a productivity perspective. The second vector that we're really trying to drive from an enterprise perspective is really to make make it easier for IT to manage these devices, right? So ensure that, one, the device is highly productive, but second, the device is also up pretty constantly, so you're not seeing, any issues with this machine prevent your employees from actually being able to work. And so you continue to see enhancements from our side on the manageability front, and this is one of the things that the vPro brand actually stands for, is to make managing the PC remotely much, much easier. But the third one that we're really starting to focus on a lot more is really around authentication and the ability to help IT devices be less susceptible to hacks. I think, if you go back over the last couple of months, it's been all over the news, right? High profile hacks, from our election to, large corporations that have been hacked. And in general, most of these hacks are really result from exploits in software or the ability for someone to basically spoof another user and get access to content that they really shouldn't have access to. So one of the major thrusts we have from a business perspective is really to come in with a new technology we're calling Intel Authenticate that really hardens the ability or hardens the credentials that a user uses to actually get access to information. Fundamentally, the way it works is basically by taking 3 pieces of information in order to make a judgment of whether the resources you're asking for access to, you're able to go get. One would be something you know. So today it could be something like a password, but in our instance, we think it's something like a secure PIN, something that's easier to typically remember. But then in addition to something which today is probably the only bar for access to the resources, we're also allowing IT administrators to ask for other types of information in order to go and make the judgment to determine that you are who you are. So, in addition to the PIN, we have the ability to go and test if you have something that you carry with you. For example, a phone or another PC, and we can authenticate that when you log in, not only do you know your PIN, but you also have this phone next to the PC, and so you can effectively have 2 factors. And the third one is actually a biometric factor, so something like a fingerprint, right? So the combination of those 3 things, something that you know, something that you have with you, something that you fundamentally are, creates a level of security that ensures that people can't hack into your IT systems and steal your valuable data. The fundamental addition that Intel provides, in addition to providing a more secure method of authentication, is to make sure that all of these credentials are actually stored in hardware. These are hardware hardened, and so they make it less susceptible for things like viruses to effectively steal your fingerprint and act like you, right? These credentials are stored in hardware, and therefore they make it much, much harder for bad actors to get access to data they shouldn't have.
Right. And, it seems like just yesterday that, we were all talking about the Intel RealSense camera and it being able to, unlock computers by just smiling at it. Seems like you are, of course, taking it to the next level with, on the enterprise side, of course, and, fingerprint reading, all this biometric stuff. It's, one problem that we see, when we talk to other companies that try to do security, this is a running theme where usability, or I'm sorry, ease of use is anti secure. Like if it's easy to get into, if it's easy to, kind of unlock, then it's kind of strenuous to keep secure because then anyone can kind of get in. Do you think Intel has room to grow there, or do you think Intel has the problem solved when it comes to, if someone wants to sit down, get started, they don't have to spend 3 minutes or 5 minutes, breaking into their own computer?
Yeah, I think this is actually a really important, I think, question, right? I do think there's this challenge or perception that to make things more secure, you actually make the process of logging in more onerous.
Hmm.
And I do think as we move to things like biometrics or even things that you carry with you, there's an opportunity to provide a win-win both to the IT portion of your business or the person trying to secure the content where their primary motivation may be to say, look, I want to make this as secure as possible versus the user who's really just trying to log in and get access to their computing resources more easily. So with things like biometrics, with things like being able to test if you have your phone with you, some of these things are pretty non-invasive ways to go back and get a better sense of where you are, right? So from an Intel perspective, and again, we're partnering with companies like Microsoft on this, this is absolutely an area the industry is working on to make logging in more simple, but at the same time more secure. What it definitely needs, though, is a combination of the right sets of hardware, right? Let's take, facial recognition, for example. You absolutely need a camera integrated or some other device to go and
Right.
tell who you are. If you're going to use a voice biometric or fingerprint biometric, you need the peripherals or the hardware capabilities to go make that kind of judgment. But the end state, if you're able to bring these factors of authentication, you're no longer trying to ask the user to come up with a very complicated password because you have multiple ways of determining who they are. So fundamentally, I do think this gets you to the end space of making it easier for the user to get access to their resources, but at the same time meets the requirements of making it more secure. I think we are in process on that, and again, I think this is a joint industry effort
Yeah.
across, Intel, Microsoft, our OEM partners, and even IT and the application vendors who sell into business environments.
I'm really happy to hear that. I mean, after you hear one single company led to 600 million unprotected webcams and monitoring devices. I mean, you definitely want to stop hearing about hundreds of millions of devices being compromised. So good to hear that you are working on it, indeed. So yeah, we're running a little bit short on time. So why don't we jump into what kind of devices are actually going to benefit from this new processor, and how are they going to be able to identify if something has a 7th gen Intel processor?
Great. So let me start with the second half of that question. So from a 7th gen product and how to identify it, we've actually made a change in our badge. The badge that you typically see on a computer, it's actually going to say 7th gen on it. So users, when you're out in, or people who are looking to buy a PC, when you're out in a retail store or online, you'll be able to go and identify whether this is a 7th gen new core processor with what's on the actual badge of the system that you typically see on there. So that's one. I think from a question of who's going to go benefit, I think, again, from a general install base perspective, we see most PCs in the install base that are anywhere from 3+ years older. And so for most of them, you're going to see pretty significant improvements from a performance perspective, both from a productivity kind of point of view, but even in terms of trying to create new content, as we talked about, with this explosion of 4K and 360-degree video, for example. On the desktop side, for example, we were saying compared to a 3-year-old PC that's in the market, which honestly is not that old, you have a 35% performance improvement in creating new content. So again, you're seeing pretty strong improvements for some of these use cases. The thing that I'm pretty excited about from a 7th gen core perspective is we have several new things from a desktop product line to go offer you guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one, we've got the new 200 series chipset, which basically powers a new set of boards. It comes with a new technology we're calling Optane memory technology. This is one of the areas we're actually trying to address from a computer perspective to increase the level of responsiveness of the computer. And this is one of the things that end users absolutely go and see as increased performance, right? So these are things like the ability to boot the computer faster, the ability to load applications faster, specifically for desktop where you have systems that have very large capacity hard disk drives, most of them in the 500 gigabyte and beyond, the hard drive itself is a source of performance issues for a computer, but we see that users consistently want the storage capacity to be able to store their photos or the videos that they're generating. And Optane memory is a technology we're coming out with that's going to go and make that hard drive perform much, much better. And that is something that's unique to our 7th Gen family and our 200 series product line. The other new thing we're going to be offering on the 7th Gen core side is actually our i3 7350K. We've actually broadened out the portfolio of our overclocking products. We started at the top end with our Broadwell E family on the 10 core side. And with this product line, we're trying to offer a more inexpensive entry point for people who want to tinker around with overclocking. And so we're definitely seeing some interest on that. And so both of those things are exciting new things for us on the 7th Gen side on desktop.
Right.
I do think, fundamentally from a full portfolio perspective,
Anand,
I'm very proud that we have the best technology.
Just one second, Anand. I'm going to have to pause you right there. I hope you can stay over for just a couple seconds. We have to take a break. We'll be back in like 2 minutes. We'll finish this up real quick, and then we'll be right back with Intel right after this.
Looking for a best friend? Brother Wolf Animal Rescue has your best friend waiting just for you. The mission is to protect and enhance the lives of companion animals and the people who love them. Their no-kill rescue shelter is open year-round, making it easy for people to adopt their best new friend. This year, Brother Wolf will find homes for over 2,400 orphan dogs, puppies, cats, and kittens. All have ended up as an orphan through no fault of their own. Brother Wolf has created a safe, nurturing environment where these special animals can heal emotionally and physically until they find a lifelong home. Their life-saving transport program brings dogs and puppies from overcrowded shelters in the south to rescues in the north where homes are easier to find. Brother Wolf Animal Rescue is a 501c3 organization. To learn more about their life-saving work and to make a donation, visit their website at www.bwar.org. That's www.bwar.org. Help to realize Brother Wolf's vision when no animal is euthanized for lack of a home.
Who's a good boy?
Anybody remember why there's a string around my finger? Marty Winston with a News Tips Bulletin Review for Computer America. This time we got in the eHang Ghost Drone 2.0 kit with their VR goggles. This drone is a precision instrument with a gimbal-mounted spherical 4K camera and an impressive amount of control. It seems excellent at keeping its place even up just under 200 feet with a solid breeze. The goggles let you see either what the drone sees or what it sees through its own front camera, so you get a heads-up display of status. We wanted a drone that could do built-in progress videos of our house project, then do gutter patrols or after-storm property line patrols, and those things are no great challenge for this quadcopter. Bottom line, the eHang Ghost Drone 2.0 with VR and a 4K camera, it's an ultra-high-def eye-in-the-sky that even we can fly. Marty Winston, News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
Hello, and welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour, and just popping over onto the other side real quick to, of course, finish up this interview because did not want to leave anyone hanging. And Anand, I truly hope that you can stay over for just a few more minutes to finish that point because, we were talking a lot about the new, of course, 7th Gen processors by Intel. And you started mentioning things like, of course, better or less choke points through things like memory and what have you. But you were also getting into, of course, the overclocking enthusiasts, and that's, personally, I love kicking mine up, an extra 0.5 or 0.6 gigahertz just to, see how much you can get out of your chip without making your whole computer cry. And it's, something that I really definitely enjoy doing. So what kind of speeds can people really expect from the latest generation of desktop processors?
Yeah, I think, so again, one, the overclocking community has really given us a huge boost over the last several generations. Our K-SKU product line, which designates the products that are overclocking, they've been growing at a double-digit % rate year on year, despite obviously the overall PC industry facing a pretty tough time over the last couple of years. So we are seeing people, the enthusiast community, really latch onto our product line And then with the 7th Gen Core product, we've got a couple of really nice features that are really helping the overall performance that the overclockers can go expect. One, we've got a feature called B-Clock Aware Voltage Frequency Curve. And effectively what this does is, for an overclocked processor, because the actual multiplier is different, we have the ability to go and optimize what our voltage settings are, knowing that the multiplier that the CPU has been set to is not what was set at stock. And effectively what this gives you is a more stable overclock and potentially a little bit higher overclock. The second feature that we added in was a feature we called AVX offset ratio. So in our product line, we have a new instruction that's called AVX. It was debuted a couple of generations ago. But this is a fairly power-intensive feature. And if people were overclocking, they would see that stability and overclocking would be lower when they were running this AVX type of instructions in their applications. So what we have today is an automatic way to go and ratchet the CPU down such that if you weren't using AVX, you could be at a higher frequency, and as soon as the CPU encounters an AVX instruction, it ratchets the frequency down, thereby ensuring that it's not sucking up too much power and creating instability on the CPU. So both of these things are new features just for 7th Gen Core, and then between the performance improvements we've seen on the process plus these features and some of the speed path work we've done, we're routinely seeing products go over 5 gigahertz. Which is something that we've been trying to get to for a couple of generations, but now you're seeing a lot of people report in the wild that they're getting products that are able to go push past 5 gig. So we're very excited about that, and we're getting a ton of good feedback on that.
Right. I remember it was just seriously less than a decade ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. That was the temperature that you got when you had liquid nitrogen to spare and a bunch of fans, and you could get 5 gigahertz, and everyone lost their mind because, hey, it's a nice big round even number, and it was really cool to see and to hear you can get that in an average computer, or not even average, but an overclock computer. Very, very cool. So I guess last question. We'll let you go after this, but when will these processors really make it into the consumer space?
So a lot of these processors were available for sale right after we launched at CES. So for example, the 7700K is already an Amazon top choice for people who are building their PCs, and there's over 40 reviews on Amazon, almost all of them 5 stars, and sort of similar numbers on places like Newegg.com. So from a processor perspective, they're broadly available right now. The one thing I did want to go and make sure your users understood is our 7th Gen Core technology, the 7th Gen set of products, is actually available from Celeron all the way through our Core i7 product right now. And we're extremely proud of offering the best performance at each of those price ranges. We've got Celeron products, we've got a great new Pentium product that people are raving about, but we've got our Core i3 product, which will give you Optane in addition to increased performance, all the way up to the i7K product. All of these are available for sale right now from a CPU perspective, from people who are building their own. And then from an OEM perspective, you should see some markets, it really depends on how long it takes the OEMs to get their systems that they build in places like China over into the retailers out here. But you should expect to see all of them in market in the next 3 to 6 months.
Very concise. And everyone, be sure to keep an eye out for that badge. It's it sounds like you have a lot of improvements, and it's not just improvements in the processor, but of course improvements throughout your entire computer between memory, RAM, storage, all that good stuff. The processor is the brain of your computer, and it's very, very central to a lot of what you do. So even if you think that, hey, my processor is fine, maybe just upgrading to another generation will get you performance in other areas that you did not expect. So, Anand, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. Sorry that we had to keep you over a couple minutes, but very interesting conversation. And yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, thank you, Ben. I appreciate the time. Thanks.
Oh no, my pleasure. And we look forward to hearing about the Gen 8 coming soon. So, with that, we'll say goodbye. Thank you again, and have a good day.
Yeah, me too. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, and there goes, again, Mr. Anand Srivatsa. There we go. Or, I'm sorry, Anand Srivatsa. I got that. There we go. The general manager of the desktop platform group for Intel. And again, for anyone just joining us for whatever reason, you can go over to computeramerica.com, where you can find the show notes for today and have links to all the content that we talked about, as well as archives, video, and audio of what we talked about. So if you miss any of it, you can go back and listen to it again. Very interesting conversation with, again, Intel. Now, everyone out there, let's why don't we continue on? We in the second segment we have, of course, computer and technology news, and we have a number of different stories that we want to get to, and some of them kind of cool, some of them a little scary if you are afraid of artificial intelligence, and others, hey, just plain interesting. So with that said, why don't we jump into computer and technology news? All right, and computer and technology news is brought to you by Computer America. And why don't we start off with this first story? And this is one that's the title of this broadcast has LG5K Woes. And this is the reason that that's up there. It's something that is so common that sometimes you forget you need to put it in because, hey, it's in everything and you think it's going to be in everything. But then when it doesn't, you have problems. And this time it's for LG and their new 5K display. That's right, 5K, not even 4K, but 5K. And they said that it must be kept at least 2 meters or about 6.5 feet, 7 feet away from your Wi-Fi routers. That's right, they must be kept physically apart. They will be at each other's throats because there's a lack of EM shielding on the television. So this coming from a publication known as Ars Technica. They write a lot of great articles, and this by Sebastian Anthony. So the spiritual successor to Apple's Thunderbolt display, the LG Ultrafine 5K monitor, which only started shipping out from Apple online store this week, has a major fault. Saying that when it was placed within 2 meters, or again 6.5 feet, of a wireless router, the display starts to flicker, and if you move it too close, it goes black and stops altogether. Not good. So, an LG electronics support person confirmed the issue, saying it only happened for the 5K monitors we have, not other LG monitors. Of course, if that wasn't bad enough, 9to5 Mac, they report that the LG 5K monitor, under the duress of a nearby Wi-Fi router, can freeze the MacBook Pro that it's plugged into, forcing a reboot to bring it back. And when he moved the router from beside the monitor to another room, everything went back to normal. Therefore, they said that they confirmed that the 5K monitor can be adversely affected by nearby wireless router, and said that the issue doesn't affect any other LG monitors. And all they ask is that you move the router at least 2 meters away from your computer. Of course, if you take a look at if you take a look at the monitor's product page on the Apple website, the customer reviews have started pouring in from just a few days ago, and a few positive, but there are lots of them out there that, of course, have the problem because, hey, let's face it, if this is your main monitor or your main system in your house, there's a pretty good chance that your wireless router is going to be somewhere near this monitor. So, as to the why this is happening, they're saying that the key part of the monitor has not been correctly shielded from electromagnetic radiation, and that part of the monitor is probably oscillating at a harmonic of Wi-Fi, which is 2.4 or 5 gigahertz, the two bandwidths that Wi-Fi uses. Of course, best case, the point of weakness is a faulty Thunderbolt 3 USB-C cable, and the more likely victim is the clock generator on the LCD panel controller or the USB controller. So it's either something as simple as a cable going through your monitor, or it is something even deeper, and odds are you're probably going to have to take it back. So, of course, hopefully the EM interference flaw is easily fixable with a bit of additional shielding so that the future batches do not suffer flickering blackouts or locked up host machines. But, of course, with Apple retiring the Thunderbolt display and working closely with LG to create 5K ultrafine monitor, you have to assume Apple will be keen on quickly fixing these things. Because again, it's not just LG, but this is Apple partnering with LG for their next generation of really, really good monitors. So Apple, known for their quality, they aren't going to let this sit around. And yeah, so if you happen to be one of the few people who have went out and purchased one of these displays super, super early, then, hey, this is part of the problem with being an early adopter. You sometimes run into these problems, which again, undoubtedly will be fixed in future iterations of the monitor. And I'm sure Apple will, of course, work with you in the coming months and weeks. Now, with that being said, why don't we move over to this next one? And this next one is, again, this is the scary one. In so much as if you've been following artificial intelligence like we have here on the show, artificial intelligence is making leaps and bounds against its human overlords, I guess, or human creators. It is competing admirably against every challenge that we seem to put it up against. This idea of machine learning, this idea that we give it parameters and it plays against itself, and it is able to quickly discern the best option, even more so than people. We saw this, of course, I am referring to AlphaGo. That was Google's big achievement with their DeepMind's artificial intelligence. It was wildly effective. I mean, it's, at this point, undisputably the best Go player in the world is an artificial intelligence. And that was something that people did not predict to happen for another decade or so. Now, we have another game that humans just cannot compete against. And this one may hit a little bit closer to everyone who likes to, with your work buddies, with family, with friends, sit around a poker table and play cards. And this time, it was Texas Hold'em. Yeah, it's gotten to that point where an application called Libratus or Libratus, I don't know. Anyways, the poker-playing artificial intelligence destroyed 4 human rivals. So, a typical table. So, the Kenny Rogers classic profoundly states that you've got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em. As in, yes, the Kenny Rogers song. And for the first time, an artificial intelligence has outgambled world-class players at heads-up, no-limit Texas Hold'em. So, of course, the representatives for humanity include some of the best poker players in the world, kept things relatively tight at the outset, but an ill-fated shift to in strategy wiped out their gains and forced them to chase the AI for the remaining weeks. And at the end of the day, after 120,000 hands, wow, the computer claimed victory with a total of $206,000 and a theoretical chip and overall pile of 1,766,250. And a theoretical overall pile. So this thing won handedly. And they have a quote here saying from the researcher, a quote here not from the researcher, but from one of the players, saying, "I think the worst result for the human team here would have been us showing up and losing and walking away thinking we could have done more, having some sort of regret." And of course that was by Jason Les, who came in fourth. And they said that they quick to assure the team, though, that they had indeed given the computer the best possible run for its money. And the creators, by the way, who come from Carnegie Mellon University. So, quite a think tank they have over there, saying this is a landmark step for artificial intelligence. This is the first time that artificial intelligence has been able to beat the best humans at heads-up, no-limit Texas Hold'em. And more generally, this shows that the best computer's ability to do strategic reasoning under imperfect information has surpassed the best humans. And that's important because this is not just telling the computer everything there is to know about your hand and all the other players' hands and then playing it correctly, because that's very, very simple to do. The computer was able to take imperfect information, and the computer wasn't designed specifically to beat poker. Instead, at its core is a series of algorithms that can interpret the rules and constraints of a certain situation and figure out a strategy when it doesn't know what the other party knows. So even though the computer didn't know the other player's cards, just like a person, it knew the best way to still come out on top, just by, of course, assuming the known information and then assuming the unknown information. So, of course, this is different from games such as chess. If you pay enough attention, you can relatively easily understand the world of the game and how, and of course, the how particular board positions can be. Of course, you'll never have that kind of understanding when playing a few hands of no-limit hold'em poker, which, of course, has made it a big target for AI researchers. So, with that being said, for what it's worth, none of the humans embroiled in this defeat feel too upset about it. The amount of money spent and the computing power required to beat them was impressive, to say the least, and it doesn't hurt that the contenders get to split the $200,000 prize pool based on how well they stacked up against the computer. And of course, while tired, they spent plenty of late nights poring over data and strategizing. None of them plans to take much of a break. Of course, and the professors, they will be taking a break to, of course, write up a full paper for publication later based on their findings. But this is very important. I mean, with a lot of other strategy games out there, such as Go, such as chess, it's one of those things where you can look at a board and you get all the information that you'll ever need. I mean, you'll get all the information that the other opponent has as well. But when it comes to something like poker, you don't get to see the other person's cards until it's time to, of course, lay them out, and that's not till the end of the match. And a lot of assuming has to be done before that. A lot of strategy has to be played around not knowing all the information. And again, this time the artificial intelligence was indeed better than its constituents. So very, very cool. Now, with that being said, before we continue on with computer technology news, we have a little message, of course, here to bring to you, and this is from a company called VTech, sponsors of the show. And VTech's new 4-line small business phone system is the perfect solution for small business owners that need to install a phone system that has qualities and features of a much larger system, of course, with a much larger price tag. So the new system is the most affordable and easy to install 4-line phone system on the market, saying that the 4-line small business phone system includes the main console and the options of desk sets, handsets, headsets, and speakerphones, all cordless or corded, up to your preference, and up to 10 different extensions. So it can grow, of course, alongside your business. Expanding the system is a complete breeze. Need to add a new desk set? Not a problem. With the touch of a button, a small business owner with minimal IT experience can register up to 9 expandable components just like that. And because they register wirelessly, they can be located anywhere. No more having to plan your office around where you can plug in a phone. They can be anywhere. And in addition to the ease of use and the simple installation, the 4-line small business phone system comes equipped with a number of different features, including auto attendant for each line, a digital answering machine with mailboxes for every extension, full duplex speakerphones, music on hold, 6-party conferencing, and even if the lights go out, power failure operation. Very important. So with that being said, VTech has a code that all of you can use for a 20% discount. And this is for the entire month of January. That's right, the entire 1 day left of January. I'm sure it will continue on. So if you're listening to this sometime in early February, do not worry, this should work just fine. But that promo code is NTK65EEK. Again, NTK65EEK. Use that code, and again, 20% off any small business phone bundle. You can find them at Office Depot, Office Max, and Staples, as well as vtechphones.com. Check it out. Maybe just what you need if you need to put phones in a small business area. Sounds simple, and yeah, We want to thank VTech once again. Now, with that being said, why don't we move on to our final story? And let's see, I had one picked out. This one coming from a publication called that's a pretty cool one. But yeah, no, called Engadget, and they have a lot of cool articles. And the one I wanted to talk about though was, here we go. Pandora. They made a lot of news a couple years ago. Now they're just kind of part of the music industry as we know it. I mean, they made a huge splash when they were first available, but now internet radio between Spotify, Pandora, and any number of different competitors out there, they all just represent one demographic, which is internet radio. It's of course growing. It's on demand. It's when you want it, anywhere you want it. It just requires an internet connection. And, of course, you pay a little bit and it's advertising free. There's a lot to like about it. Well, now, as if to add to the legitimacy of ideas like internet radio and Pandora specifically, we have this article from Engadget talking about Pandora and their radio data is now included in the Billboard Hot 100. That's right. The top 100 songs are now included from Pandora's data. And the addition pushed 9 songs up in rank by at least 5 places. So obviously, it's not just that they added the data and it, kind of reaffirmed everything. No, it changed. It changed a lot of different standings because, hey, people who listen to things on Pandora are going to be listening to different things than, terrestrial radio or what have you. So, of course, despite recent layoffs and the fact that it only launched a streaming service last month, Pandora is a giant player in the internet radio market, saying that Billboard unveiled a partnership with the service for its Hot 100 chart and says it immediately impacted 35 songs. 35 different songs of the top 100. Sorry about that. Saying it pushed 9 of those up by 5 or more spots in the rankings, including they have a couple of songs listed here. But they even have Rob Stone's Chill Bill, which jumped up by 10 places. And again, it's not that they threw out another, all the other data that they had. They simply added to it. And next thing you know, there you go. So, Pandora recently launched a $10 premium streaming service based on its RDO acquisition, and it won't be available to the public until later this year. But it still has a very consequential 78 million users and 4.3 million subscribers to a $5 Pandora Plus radio service. Remember, Pandora Plus simply makes Pandora radio ad-free, but the Pandora Premium is going to make it on demand. So any song you want, anywhere you want it, that's going to be the service that you want, at least if you go through Pandora. So Pandora is now the #1 radio station in 87 U.S. markets and represents roughly 10% of all radio listeners. That by the Pandora CEO. 10% of all radio listeners. Pandora is, my God, they're doing so well. But that's why Pandora had such an immediate impact. Even services with many more subscribers like Spotify or Apple Music already affect the chart. And Pandora data will also be included in the Billboard streaming and formula-based charts, including country, rock, and other genres. Very, very cool. So, despite the boost, Pandora announced earlier this month that it had laid off 7% of its workforce due to a big increase in competition from Apple Music, Spotify, and other services. And on top of the $75 million spent on RDO, it also completely revamped its site last year and is no doubt spending big to launch Pandora Premium streaming. So, the company is reportedly looking for a buyer, with SiriusXM rumored to be leading the candidates so far. SiriusXM buying Pandora. That sounds like a pretty good match, I'll be honest with you. But it may be able to take some hope from Tidal, which just sold a big chunk of itself to Sprint for a reported $200 million. Tidal. That is one service I did not see making it, but yeah, I guess when you have, big names on it and, big names at its helm,
90
you
seconds.
can float them for longer than anyone else thinks you should, let alone you could. Now, everyone, thank you so much for joining us here today on Computer America. Hopefully today's interview, again, with Intel, if you didn't catch that, you can head on over to computeramerica.com and you can find everything you need to know about today's interview right there in the show notes. Should be right there on the homepage. We have Intel's big i7, the i7 badge emblazoned on our website.
60
Click that to
seconds.
find everything you need to know. Now tomorrow, for everyone out there, remember how I said, hey, where'd the month go? Well, next Wednesday, or tomorrow, is going to be the first of the month, so we have Mr. Mike Cermak joining us. And he will be joining us to talk all about, of course, Tesla. They have new power packs and things like that, and everything else, artificial intelligence, tech support. I mean, he's just an all-around, very interesting guy, and you'll definitely want to tune in tomorrow to hear all about it. And until then, be sure to check out computeramerica.com for social media contests, for show notes, for anything else. I believe we're going to be doing some more giveaways. I'll let you all know more about that as soon as I can. But hey,
10
stay tuned
seconds.
to Computer America for all that we do here. Until then, have a good one. Bye-bye. All right, and everyone out there who is, of course, watching on the... Let me just end this episode here. There we go.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Okay. Anyone out there watching on the video portion, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed today's program, and we will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, to do it all again. Have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.